Video is about the video game Rust and a cosmetic change that's been made to something called the TC or tool cupboard or tool chest. The newer version of it has the information you would normally get out of it by interacting with it as something that can be just displayed on the screen or on many screens. Now, if you're not aware of it, these are all individual separate models that have been brought into the game engine to do this. And by happenstance today, I typed in a couple of things and found some of it. Now, we're going to do here, by the way, noise. The first one up here is a generic green or any kind of color or black and white monitor that was used from 1980s forward. It has a top cowl on it to make it to where you can use a low intensity brightness if you want to, and your lighting won't interfere with you being able to read it. And they're used as monitors. That means if you're not aware of what a computer screen or TV set or a speaker called a monitor is, it's just there so that you can hear or see what's going on and not have to really use something high-end. This one looks to be a 5 or 6 inch monitor inside of a rather basic case. Very common occurrence. I don't know if I can even find out which one it's modeled on. This one here is the floppy drive number 2 from Apple. That's all it is. This one is a Russian oscilloscope, and I just found it on eBay. They have one it's probably literally the same one. This one here is a Sperry Systems monitor, and this one is a TV set from the 1970s. And I'll slide down real quick. This is a audio amplifier for a rack mount component system and an unknown printer. I haven't seen enough good images of it to know which one is which. Okay, and down here is storage. So let's do the components here. Let's start off with the tube cupboard at a different angle. From the behind, we can see the back of that monitor that I'm claiming is a Sperry. Again, this is the front. It has a bezel around, well, this is kind of almost like an imitation of the Apple monitor where it could tilt internally, but it isn't that one. So anyway, there's the back of that monitor. We have air vents on the sides and on the top, and we have that duplicated on this back piece, which is to hold the no-no zone for the cathode ray tube. And that's identical to this. This is the same thing, and this is it from the front. This one has only 2 knobs, but has the light here and the push button for turning it on there, just like on here. So it's either based on or it's identical to the Sperry monitor. Okay? Now, here we can see a much better version of this. And we have a knob, a red light, a cowl around the cathode ray tube. That's actually kind of a common occurrence in the past. A bunch of push buttons, 5 knobs, a bunch of push buttons, and these have been made into kind of knobs, but they're supposed to be the in-out points for sending it data. And there it is. That's literally it. There isn't any. It's the same thing. There it is. There's the beast. That's it. Game over. Now, and there's the Apple the Apple disc. It's a 5 1/4 full height drive in a case, and obviously that's this thing here. Now onto this thing. Now I don't really have any images for it because this has been. I don't know where they got it from, but this is kind of generic 1970s TV set in the United States and in other countries. Mostly Japanese parts put into a case. It also matches a BBC product. But anyway, if you're not aware of it, these are slider knobs for volume, brightness, whatever. It's probably, as you can see, it's supposed to be a color screen because it has red, green, and blue icon here. And that's a Sony Trinitron item, which is a no-no to put onto something else. But here we see what looks like push buttons for channels. The idea is at one time you would have a little door you'd flip forward, and these push buttons would activate individual manually controlled tuners for UHF or VHF or whatever the equivalent was in your country. In the United States as well. I had one that had 12 main channels. You'd had to tune each one of them. The idea is that if you were in an area like I grew up in, you had maybe 4 channels. We had ABC, CBS, NBC, and they'd be at various frequencies on UHF and VHF both. We would pick the one that was best looking by flipping the UHF-VHF switch and then tuning it in exactly for each one. So we have ABC, CBS, NBC in that order. Don't ask me why. And we have one of them for the local public broadcasting or community access TV channel that might be in the area from a college. And then one more of them would be tuned, oddly enough, to whatever channel happened to produce noise from a radio channel. Lots of FM stations that do that. So you tune it in, and the screen would go berserk, but you could listen to FM audio from, let's say, the low end of the dial. That's a thing. So anyway, it's an Apple 5 1/4 full height drive and it's called Disk 2. It's a Russian, whatever this spells out, oscilloscope, and it's a Sperry monitor. And there's the back of it there, and that's it. Now, the rest of this, if anybody's curious, obviously it's just a piece of artwork in a game. The TV set here is obviously based on something I think is in the 70s or 80s. These were usually referred to as television consoles. Obviously it's color, so it would be a color television receiver and or console. And to make it look nicer, instead of having two great big dumb looking knobs like most of them had, a lot of them were made with a little flip down door and used a couple of push buttons. And some of them even include a vague version of a remote control to select between the channels. And scrolling down again, we have an audio amp. This is so generic, I'm not even going to look it up. I'm sure it's a specific one. But that's an audio amplifier component system for running speakers. And this here is a printer I haven't been able to identify. Now, here's the request for comment, request for information, RFIRC for you. If you know exactly what monitor that is, yes, there's a BBC teletype monitor that looks a little bit like it. Please comment below. If you know this isn't a Sperry, please tell me what it is. If you know exactly what that translated to in Russian, please just type it below so I can put it in the video title. And if you know of a different company that made this same drive, I don't see how it could be, but it might be. I remember one that was a steel-cased version that was a rip-off version that you could use with Apple and other products, but I don't know the brand name if it had one. And as for this one, I remember carrying one of these around and plugging them in. They're just a really simple monitor that's, 5 or 6 inch diagonal. I think that one's a 6 inch in this particular image. And that's it. By the way, that's a 12-inch monitor, and it was green like that. But this is supposed to be color. But if anybody has any more information, please post it below. Thanks for watching. Have a good day, and I wish you all luck with this.